Welcome, Taurus, to your monthly horoscope forecast for January 2020. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol on the desktop version of YouTube. This month begins with a glittering array of planets in the most exciting and expansive part of your horoscope, your sister Earth sign of Capricorn. If you have an option to widen your experience of life in January this month, whether it's through your personal activities or your professional ones, I do think it can be incredibly enriching for you. Of course, the question that you may ask yourself or even ask of me is, that's okay, Patrick, but I quite like the status quo. After all, I'm a Taurus, I'm a fixed sign, I'm earthy, I like my routines. Why should I get excited about this monster set of influences that are all gathered in the sign of Capricorn? Well, quite simply, Taurus, it's because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring change to your situation, but in a way that you're in charge of the process. And the story of this month begins with Jupiter, the planet of growth, which is back into the sign of Capricorn for the first time in 12 years, in a beautiful alliance with Mercury, the planet which governs our thinking, but also travel, also anything to do with commerce. And the combination are linking perfectly to Uranus, the planet of surprises, which is in your sign. Now, when Uranus first came into Taurus for a brief period for 5 months in 2018, you may have found it quite a disruptive process, particularly if you're born right at the beginning of Taurus. But its transit through the sign of Taurus last year was much more productive, and it can be even more so this year, because Uranus is going to be forging key alliances to a number of eclipses and full and new moons right throughout 2020. So even if at the start of this year you're feeling perhaps a little bit tentative about what this change may bring, I actually think if you can submit yourself to the process, you may be absolutely thrilled by how things unfold by the time you get to December of 2020. It's just giving things a little bit of a chance to unfold. Now, as this month begins, therefore, if you are thinking about a vacation, for example, this would be a wonderful way to embrace all this fresh new energy. Then again, it could come from new interests or spending time with people who in the past may not have been your cup of tea, but just giving yourself the opportunity to experiment a little bit with those fresh pursuits or different types of folks or circles can actually prove to be very stimulating, even if it's not for you on every single one. You'll certainly be learning, and knowledge is set to be the key for the whole of this year for you. Because as this year begins, Ceres, the asteroid which is very much to do with nurture, is also in the sign of Capricorn. So the more that you can gain in whichever way, whether it's the type of foods you eat, the type of cooking you do, the type of holiday destinations that you embrace, or the type of social interaction you have, the more you do change things up, the more exciting life is set to be. I promise you. And that wonderful link between Uranus, Mercury and Jupiter as this year begins is going to put you very much in charge of the process, because also Jupiter is quite near to the Sun as you begin this new year. So that in itself is a very positive and optimistic combination, just about as good as it gets, quite frankly. So it is one to really savour. Now, of course, Saturn, the planet of structure, but also of restriction, has been making its way through your 9th house, the sign of Capricorn, for the last couple of years. And it may not always have been a very comfortable process. Saturn, wherever it goes, tends to cause a little bit of trouble. We may as well be honest about this. But Saturn also has its upsides, insofar as it can give us a wonderful sense of of stability, about the things that are worth preserving. But also Saturn can be about structure, so it helps us to reorganize. It can be very good in terms of self-discipline, in terms of order. So if you've been learning something, perhaps it's been a professional qualification or you've been involved in full-time higher education, then I do feel that Saturn may have set you some challenges, but not ones that you can't overcome. Then again, you may have visited places that in the past may have been outside what you would have favoured and may have been pleasantly surprised by what you've gained from that journeying. And certainly in the second week of this month, as Saturn and Pluto, also in Capricorn, go exactly side by side and then link with the Sun and also Mercury on the 12th and the 13th. So we have a direct conjunction between the four influences. This is a seminal moment because staying as you are, Taurus, may not actually be an absolute option, because some of the changes, particularly if you really welcome them, could be ones that you are providing the stewardship to. If, however, you resist, it may seem that life is changing things in a way which is not very comfortable. So the more you can sort of give yourself permission to just go for it and accept that life is changing at such a pace these days for us all, it's just really going to be best if you can just attune to this, even if you're saying to yourself, look, I'm really finding this a bit difficult at times, but if you just offer yourself up to the process, I do feel that you'll start to enjoy it. Now, as this year begins, there is also a wonderful angle between the North Node and Jupiter, which comes to a high point on the 7th. Now, this is an opposition, but it suggests you could have a conversation around the first week of this month, which could prove to be very telling. Also, by the 7th, it's exactly conjunct the South Node. So it's almost as if something you've learnt in the past or something you learn now can come back to you in a very positive way if you give it a chance. Now, also, as this year begins, Venus, your ruler, is in a very high profile part of your situation. You have a way of being which is both earthy, you have a way of talking which is very much coming from the throat, which people actually find very alluring. And I don't just mean in a romantic context. So if you're wanting to reshape your world in terms of your work, and you do have an interview early in this month, Venus is going to be a wonderful asset to you. Because the moon, as this year begins, is in the sensitive sign of Pisces, but it's alongside Neptune, the planet of dreams. This is going to make you particularly idealistic as you enter into this new year, especially around your friendships. And another thing that you can kind of get with that combination of energy on the 12th and the 13th is you can find yourself as the truth seeker. Now, the truths could be in trying to ferret out some documents or information which are key to whatever you're doing, or they can be the truths about your existence. And something can shift in your philosophy, which can be incredibly important at this time. And it may be about your future direction and also about the type of people that you want to be orientated towards. So that's where changes can happen too. But the combination between the moon and Neptune does give you a heightened sense of awareness. The key, of course, is to listen to the hunches that it gives you. But back to Venus, because the midpoint between the moon in Pisces and also the sun in Capricorn is right beside Venus. So I feel you're going to have a real balance in the more feminine, receptive side of your nature and the more go-getting masculine side of the sun nature, a balance between those two with Venus, your ruler, which suggests your people skills in professional situations can be outstanding as this year begins. So it's something to really use and develop. And also, as this year begins, Mars, the planet of drive and passion and determination, is in your opposite sign. So relationships can be set fair as long as you appreciate there may be some adaptations to make. Some of these may come from you, some of these may be adaptations you require from other people. And one of the things that some Taurus people could aspire to in January and in 2020 in general is a greater sense of independence and freedom. Now, that doesn't mean being completely cut off from anyone or anything or any way of being that has provided comfort and stability in the past. It just may mean that you want more wiggle room to develop your individuality around the basic structure you have. Now, if you can arrange this, I do think you're creating the circumstances to thrive. If someone resists this, this could cause a little bit of a problem. Now, by the 11th of this month, Uranus in your sign does go direct after a long retrograde. And if that whole issue of freedom, independence, space has been something that's really been deeply in your consciousness over the last 5 months or so, I just think that can settle a little bit. And then on the 14th, your ruler moves into Pisces to join up with Neptune. And that's going to be something that's really delightful because this is an option for you to really get into a more social way of being really quite early in the year. And certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, there can be a tendency to hunker down in January and February. The weather's a bit darker, it's colder, we may be getting settled earlier in the evenings. Those kind of pursuits are totally understandable, but Venus moving into this area could surprise you before the end of the month. But also Mars is going to be moving on the 3rd of this month into the sign of Sagittarius. And this for you is very much about the deeper side of your drives and desires. Now, this could be more sensual desires, it could be more financial ones. But the move of Mercury on the 17th to the top of your scope to replace Venus, which moved on to Pisces, the arrival of the Sun on the 21st, and also the new moon in Aquarius on the 24th are going to arouse your ambitions. You can see yourself becoming more focused about your goals. And with the potential there to use Venus's energy from the turn of the year, and also in the sense that it's in a very cooperative part of your scope for the last phase of this month, if you can balance the go-getting and goal-setting that you have with the relationships that you're developing and nurturing with people at large, that's going to be a very smart thing to do. Now, Mars does go on to forge a rather awkward right angle with Neptune in Pisces as this month draws to a close. It's just saying to you that when it comes to those longer term hopes, it's best to be resolutely realistic. But that comes quite naturally to you anyway. You like to test the validity of things because through doing that, you can really see if there's something tangible that can be gained. That's a very Earth-like response, especially for a fixed sign like yours. So if somebody came up with a fantastical scheme and presented it to you towards the end of this month, you know, the classic get-rich-quick scheme, I really would be quite cautious. Or if there's somebody in a group situation who you really, really are taken with, just give yourself a little bit of time to get to know them a bit better before making a final decision, to get too involved. There may be something about this person that they don't tell you that actually you would want to know. Or is it that your desires need to be tempered in some way by the realistic financial circumstances of your situation? But certainly, as this month draws to a close and heading into February, your ambitions very much come into sharp focus. But I feel that the way you pursue those ambitions, the way you pursue your interests, your activities, your own personal space, your personal truth, your higher philosophy and understanding of life are going to be shaped enormously by this tremendous stellium of energy in the sign of Capricorn. It's so incredibly exciting for you, and it's really something, as I say, that if you can embrace, you're going to get the most from it. If you'd like to know what 2020 would hold for you beyond your zodiac sign, based on your time, date and place of birth, please see the link beneath this video. You can order your 12-month forecast, plus get 30% off, Get the rest of 2019 free if you're watching it in that year, watching this video in that year. But for now, I'd like to wish you a very happy January. Thank you for joining me and good luck.